Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Cardiff City World. It's Thursday night live, and I'm delighted that as we look forward towards our game with Doncaster Rovers on Saturday, as well as we talk about the season so far, I'm delighted to be joined by Doncaster fan, content creator, presenter, Mr. Aaron Challoner. How are you, mate?
I'm pretty good. Thank you very much for having me on Cardiff City World. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Cardiff City World if you haven't. And can't wait for a wonderful preview show.
Yeah, it's going to be good fun, mate. I want to have a good old chat and just really get a feel for Doncaster, the manager, the season, everything. I've got a couple of videos which I sort of break my previews into 3 different videos. So I do like a general preview tomorrow lunch. Then tomorrow night, I pit the managers against each other in a bit more of a tactical thing. And I've got a new twist to that where I've got a new tactics table to add to that as well, which I'm quite looking forward to using in the morning. And then Saturday morning, we do sort of 3 big questions that Cardiff will have to answer to win the game. But talk to me a bit about Doncaster's season so far.
So from an overall perspective, I think we started the season quite well in the first few games. We were amongst the top 6 heading out of the window. We looked like we were in for a bit of a strong season. We beat Bradford, which was one of our rivals in the league, and in terms of local rivals, we thought, yeah, this is going to be a great season. But then the form kind of fell off a cliff almost. I think we got too carried away as a fan base at times. I think we got a bit too carried away and we kind of fell off quite a bit. And it's been a struggle to try and recover that form. And I think we're starting to, get used to the fact that this is a different League One to when we exited a few years back. Different teams, different standard. The quality's gone up compared to a few years ago. And we at times have really struggled to adapt to that. I think the lack of firepower is something that's obviously glaring. It's glaringly obvious. With 17 goals all season, it's from an attacking perspective, it's not been good enough by the standard of some. But I think overall, despite the lack of form in some parts of the season, we still hold faith in the man in charge because of what he's won for us, what he's done in the past, how much we trust him. And, we'd back him to the moon and back. There are some fans in our fan base that have turned on him, which from what I've seen. But, they can hold their respective opinions. I can respect the fact they have a different opinion to the majority of fans. But fans like myself, we fully back the manager and we think he can turn it around. But overall, it's been a mixed season. I think the game against Stockport on Tuesday night fully describes our season. It's been a mixed season.
So, if I asked you to pick out the biggest positive, whether that's a player, the way you're playing, whatever it may be, and I asked you to pick out the biggest negative, what would your answer be to both?
I think the biggest positive, first of all, I would say is Conor O'Riordan. I think he's been our best summer signing by a clear mile, and that's no disrespect to the rest of the signings this summer. I think that Conor O'Riordan's been our best signing of the summer. I think the majority of the games, I think he's been brilliant. I think he's been defensively solid. He's played the ball well. He's physical, wins the aerial duels well. And he's a defender who, we looked at the transfer reports this week and the rumours that he might be going back to Blackburn and, coming out from Alan Nixon and Elliot Jackson from the Lancashire Telegraph side of it. And, if that's true, there's no wonder he might be getting called back. He's a quality player and he's someone who has defended very, very well. He's defended with his heart on the line. And that's the kind of defender that I like. I like defenders that are so committed to the cause and play for the badge on the shirt. That's what I love about a player. So O'Riordan for me has been the biggest positive. In terms of the biggest negative of the season so far, I go back to that point. I think it's the lack of firepower. I think, we've got 3 strikers. One heads back in January after not really doing a lot. I don't think he's scored any goals in the 7 appearances that he's made on loan from Houston Dynamo in Alessandria. Brendan Hanlon's just coming into form, but then kind of fell off a little bit. And then Billy Sharp, with the experience he's got, we'd love to see him getting more goals. But I think due to service and a few wrong decisions in the last minute, he just hasn't been able to manage to get the overall amount of goals this season that we would have liked. He's starting to get there again. He did in the double against Chesterfield, but I think he needs to get more than that, even for a 39-year-old. So I think firepower's been probably our biggest negative. I mean, shots on target per game, we're in the bottom 4 in the league. We've scored one of the least in the league. I'd say we're in the bottom 6 to 7 in terms of goals scored in the league. So I think firepower's not been at the standard that we would like to have been due to multiple factors, whether that's service into the box, the decision making in the final third, which has been a massive talking point amongst the supporters for weeks upon weeks. And it's something that's going to be massively addressed in the January window, I think.
So with that, it feels like Billy Sharp is like about 72. Like, it does feel like he's been around since I was a kid. But the fact is, like, age aside, the man is a goal scorer. He's a proven goal scorer. And you tend to think if he can get on a bit of a run, he will get you some goals. But obviously, there's no getting around the fact that he 39?
Yeah,
it's a long old slog in League One, so you obviously need some alternatives to him. You can't rely solely on him to get you the goals. Going back to that Stockport game, obviously you lost 2-0 at your place.
Yeah.
What out of that game gives you hope that you can get something at Cardiff on Saturday?
I'll be honest with you, it doesn't fill me with a whole heap of confidence. The manager is giving us the rally cry post-match. He is giving us the rally cry of we're going in there with no fear. That was the quote in the press this week, no fear. Turning our focus straight to Cardiff. And I respect the fact the manager's got this Ancelotti-style mentality where he wants to take on the world. He doesn't fear the world. If we make mistakes as a team, he's going to call it out. If a performance weren't good enough, he's not going to dress it up with anything to facade it. He's going to say it as it is. So if we do get beat 4-5-0 by Cardiff on Saturday, he will be as ruthless as Richie Wellens was in the FA Cup. If we've all seen that press conference, I can just see the press conference now if we lose by that scoreline. But I think from the Stockport game, I don't hold much confidence in a positive result. I mean, the game itself, it was mixed for me. A lot of fans were saying the whole game wasn't good enough for Rovers, but I disagree. And this, people may call me ultimately positive, but I thought the first half we did all right. I thought we played some good stuff, but the second half we just kind of lost control as the half went on, which warranted the 2 goals that Stockport scored. And it was a very physical stop-start game most times. So it was one of them games where we were coming out with a few scars and a few bruises, and we're losing a couple of key players for this game on Saturday as well. So it's not going to be an easy one. Losing an experienced defender to injury, losing one of our starting midfielders to a suspension with that 5th yellow card. It's not great because he's been starting pretty much most league games, if not every league game, with Bailey alongside him. So it's going to be interesting not having him start in the midfield. But as long as we go into it with a no fear mentality, and as long as we give 100% effort, no matter what the result, I'm sure the fans that are there are going to applaud the players no matter what. If we get beat 4-5-0, but we put 100% effort in, then I've got no regrets, and the players get my ultimate respect regardless.
Do you which players are out? Did you say?
So George Broadbent's out with a 5th yellow card so he's suspended for the game that he picked up against Stockport. Matty Pearson, the central defender, is out on the injury table with Olasanya, who I believe will go back in January anyway. And beside that, it's going to be just a case of who competes for a place and who starts over other people. Because I think we've got the squad where we've got a lot of quantity. We now just need to up it with a little bit more quality.
Okay. So with regards to the Cardiff game, do you think, will Doncaster come out and try and play, or will you sit more with a bit of a low mid block and try and sort of frustrate Cardiff? Do you think? What's the usual game plan in these types of games?
Well, usually McCann likes to be on the front foot, or at least try and be on the front foot as much as possible. There is some possession parts to his game. However, he prefers getting the ball directly forward and trying to get it, in the front half of the pitch as close as possible. In terms of what I would like to see going into that Cardiff game with the stats to back it up, I don't want to see us really play negative, but what I do want to see is I'd like to see us be robust at the back. And this is where I go back to one of the previous results we had against Bradford a season or two ago, where we played a 3-4-2-1, which adapted to a sort of a 5, like a 5-2-1 almost, like a 5-4-1 maybe. I'd like to see us maybe go with that. I'd like to see us go for a 3-4-2-1 and trying to set up with a back five almost, and then sort of a 2-2 almost with a one up front, and do it like that. I'd like to see us maybe go a bit more robust at the back, try and settle it a bit at the back. Obviously, I'd like to go with a no fear approach when we counter. I don't think we're going to play through Cardiff. I think Cardiff City are very much an open football side at times. Especially under Brian Barry Murphy. I think his football's brilliant to watch at times. I think it's fantastic to watch. So we are not. If we step up to Cardiff and try and play football against a footballing side, it's going to be career suicide at the minute. So for me personally, I'd like to see us set up a bit more deeper, a bit more robust at the back. And I'd like to see us try and be a bit hard to break down. And I'd like to see us use that quick press on the counter rather than just play through everyone and just play tiki-taka or try and play pretty football. Because if we start playing pretty football, we'll get torn apart if we're not careful by a pretty football side. So I'd like to see us go with a bit more of a 5-back, 3-4-2-1 in attack style of direct ruthlessness, but I'd like to see us be more robust at the back because I could see us getting torn apart if we're not careful.
Yeah, I think the teams that come and try and play, that suits Cardiff a lot because they like to do a lot of pressing, a lot of counter pressing, and win the ball high up. Whereas the teams which have sat in, like Burton did it to us, they just sat in with 2 banks of 4 and just said, right, you break us down, and we didn't, and then they nicked the goal sort of on the break. And then the other side of it is we do sometimes struggle when teams go quite direct into the channels, just turning us around a little bit. And I was kind of looking at the way you set up, and you tend to play 4 at the back, and it's usually like a 4-1-4-1 almost, or like a 4-3-3, depending on how you look at it. But with it, is it Broadbent's normally the one who will sit in front of a defence, isn't he?
Yeah, he's the if we go with the 6-8 partnership of Broadbent and Bailey, Broadbent is that 6. He's been molded into a 6 type player, like a Ben Whiteman star role almost back from a few years back, and Bailey will be the more advanced. So that's why I'm kind of thinking we might go with the midfield of Bailey and Close, because Close will act as the 6 and Bailey is the 8. Even if we go with the back 3, back 5 system, I think it'd be the same midfield. If they want Bailey to become the 6 role while Broadbent's suspended, we'll probably end up starting Charlie Crew next to Bailey. I was
just ask you about Charlie Crew. I noticed he got a start against Stockport. How has he been? Because obviously he was at Cardiff as a kid. We were very disappointed when he left because he's a supremely talented footballer. But I was looking at the system, at least according to the BBC, for the Stockport game, and it seems like he played just off Billy Sharp, but actually when he was younger he played a bit deeper than that. So I was kind of interested in how he has been for you and how he's been in League One, and just whether you think he might get game time Saturday.
Yeah, I think that kind of 10 style role on Tuesday night was a kind of square pegs round holes. I'm questioning why Robbie Gotts isn't starting in that role if Clifton's not starting. I'm wondering where Gotts is. Sure, we'll get some clarification close to the time. But in terms of Crew overall, yeah, I think he's had a pretty good season. He's been okay this season. He's filled in multiple roles in the midfield at times. He's been a very versatile midfielder in the centre of the pitch, operating as a 6, an 8, and filling in as a 10 a couple of times. So he's someone who's been very versatile. He's been adaptable, which is something that we'd love to see in any club, in any side. We like adaptable players that can fill in somewhere, whether it's square pegs round holes or a very comfortable fit. In terms of when I compare it to his first loan spell, obviously the previous campaign, I'd prefer his first campaign rather than his current one, his second spell, because I think we've seen a lot more out of him, but he has had the international duty. So I think we'll now see a lot more of him and a lot better of him now that he's back from that international spell. And I don't think there's an international break till March. So we're going to see a lot more of Charlie Crew, and I think get a lot better than from Charlie Crew. He's not been awful. I don't think he's been awful at all. I don't think he's had many worse games or really, really awful games. I think his worst game has been kind of an average performance, like a 5, kind of if we're going off ratings. So I think he's been okay this season. He's not been world class, but I think he's been great. I think he's been okay. But I think we'll see a hell of a lot better of him now we're moving into the winter period and heading towards that next international break.
Yeah, I think with young players, they get better as they play more, and then they get a run of games. And like we found with the international break, that has really affected the form of the team coming out with those breaks. It's really sort of been quite disruptive. So I'm kind of I can see how he would be affected by that. Where do you think Cardiff can get at you on Saturday? Like, where's the areas where you think we're gonna have to be good there, or we're gonna get punished?
I think the style of football that Cardiff play is something we're going to be really wary about. Again, like I said, they're a pretty football side. They've got brilliant free-flowing attacking players that, for me, could play through us like a hot knife through butter. I think it's one of them situations where we've got to tighten the gaps. We've got to be robust. We've got to stay focused at the back because Cardiff will just cut us open in a second. It's one of them, I call it the Hector Bellerin moment against Tottenham, I think, a few years ago, where on one of the goals in Tottenham's 2-0 win during the COVID season in 2020, 2021, where it was basically he sort of nicks the ball and he takes a second to think and then he has to run back. It's one of them games where I think we've got to switch on because the second kind of take the ball off us could be a second, and it could be a second too late before we track back, and it could be already too late by then. It's one of them where we've got to stay switched on 100% from minute 1 to minute 90 or 90 plus. In terms of the specific dangers, I think you'll work the ball well down the channel. I think, again, our fullbacks are attacking fullbacks. So I think that we've got to be... They can't be too far forward because, again, Cardiff could just launch the ball down the channels if need be and try and beat our defensive line if that line is too high and catch us off guard. And again, it's going to be a case of tracking back and hoping we reach the ball in time. It was a physical game on Tuesday night, so we could see that physicalness cross over into Saturday, depending on how physical we want to be. And I do think we need to be a physical side on Saturday. I think that we need to bring that in. So I think the way that Cardiff could play around that, again, is with that quickness, that free-flowing attacking nature on the front foot constantly, which is what Brian Barry Murphy's famous for. So I think that's the main thing we're going to be careful of here with Cardiff, is the fact that they're going to be a dangerous attacking side and they're a side that will outplay us. But the problem is our manager sometimes has got that mindset, and it has in the first spell as well, of, well, you score this many, we'll try and score one more than you. And sometimes defensively, we're going to be caught off guard quite a bit. So Cardiff, if we're not careful, we're not switched on, and we're not compact enough at the back, both in possession and out of possession, Cardiff could sneak a few goals past us if they cut through those gaps with the pace that we know them for this season.
Is there anyone in the City side which you kind of look at and concerns you, or you think that maybe there's an area where you could get at Cardiff?
I mean, obviously the main threat is Selec up front. I mean, he's someone who, again, he's your top scorer. He's someone who knows where the back of the net is. He can be a bit of a robust striker at times. So he's someone who's a bit of an all-rounder and someone who I think will know where the net is. And again, we've got to be switched on defensively, because if we even let him into the box, if we give him a sniff off the shoulder, he will pounce. And I think he's got a good shot record in terms of on target to off target. So He's someone here who, for me, will be very dangerous. There are some other quick players. Obviously, the youth has been important to Cardiff, and when I look at players like Colwill, he's someone who, again, could punish us. But overall, for me, I think the whole squad's a threat for Cardiff. I could pick out Selec and Colwell specifically, but I think that the whole squad's going to be a massive threat, and we've got to stay switched on for everyone, because Cardiff's one of them teams where you pick a certain player and you keep your focus on them and you nullify them. There's that other player on the other side, and you're thinking, oh no, what about this guy? We've got to keep focus on everyone. But I think Selec and Colwell are the kind of two main attacking threats for me.
So
I think
so Ruben Colwell's out. He's had surgery on his ankle. He's not back until February, I think. But Joel Colwell is played in the 10 on Tuesday. He did all right out of possession. He's very good, like really good at pressing. I don't think he's quite up to the creativity side as his brother at the moment, but he's also younger and he's still learning.
Look back at the Stockport game. If you look back at the Stockport game, they started an 18-year-old defensive midfielder as a right wing back, and he had, apart from him coming off earlier than I think he would have liked to have been because of a slight cramp or knock, I think he was one of the players of the game for Stockport. So if Joel starts either as a 10 or in his normal position, I think from a Cardiff perspective, I don't want to speak on behalf of Cardiff, but I think on a Cardiff perspective, I think a game like this against Donny, who are way further down the league, this could be a game where Barry Murphy looks at it and think this is an opportunity to start Joel, and I wouldn't be against him starting Joel, because he's got like you said, he's got the pace. He still needs to keep up with the creativity side of it, and I think this is the perfect game to do it, because you've got a side here who ain't afraid to go for it, but you'll cut them apart with ease if we do. So this could be a perfect game for Joel on the face of it.
Yeah, I got a feeling Callum Robinson will come back in because it's a home game as well. So they've been sort of, since Ruben's been injured, they've tried three different players, or not even tried. I think they've adapted who plays in the 10 depending on the opposition. So Callum Robinson played the first one and did very well. Then they had Joel Colwell in there, who also did pretty well, I think. And then Omari Kellyman's done it as well. And he's, Omari Kellyman's got so much ability, but I still don't think he's fit from his surgeries and injuries in the summer. But there's a lot of injury concerns. There.
Yeah, there's a lot of injury concerns with Kellerman. I had Kellerman on one of my old recruitment plans just a couple of years ago or a few years ago. When he was at Aston Villa, he was someone who, as a youngster, or even at Chelsea, when he was a youngster at Chelsea, he was someone who I would have loved to have had on loan when we were in League One last. He's someone who I think could be a really, really good player if he overcomes the injuries. But again, it's a massive thing to overcome. If he can stay fit and you've got the right medical opinions behind him to keep himself fit and to keep himself steady, you've got a hell of a player there. Who's, like you said, a lot of ability.
Yeah, do you know it? And this is just a personal opinion with how I see him, but like I watch him and I feel like he's still not at like full tilt. But I think it might be a psychological thing rather than a physical thing, because he's played. He's been in the squad every game since he came to Cardiff. I think he might have missed a cup game or two out of the squad, but he's been in the squad. He starts probably more games than he's sub. He always comes on, and he's one of them which he looks good at times. But against Wrexham, he was absolutely unplayable. And then the other day, what was it, Mansfield? He looked sensational. But that was his first game really in the league as a 10, and he had a tremendous impact on the game. But you could see as the game went on, he took a couple of bumps, and he came off. And I thought he was very good. He's clearly got bags of ability. It's just trying to get over what was such a serious injury that it's just trying to. Sometimes it's the mental side of it, which is the last bit, isn't it? So Reese was asking me, he said thanks for coming on, because obviously Reese was the one who spoke to you, but he asked me to ask you about the game versus Brentford back in 2013 when friend of the channel James Coppinger bagged you a nice goal. But it was it was an exciting moment, I'm sure, for you guys. It was one of those games which you remember even if you were not a fan of the teams involved.
Yeah, that's one of my early Rovers memories, and it's one of the greatest moments in this club's history. When you've got even if you weren't there at Griffin Park, or whether you were there at behind the goal in the stand, when you got a penalty at one end and it turns into a goal for the opposite team on the other side. I mean, in the last minute, when you've got Brian Flynn running up and down that dugout, I mean, the celebrations were just unbelievable. And the Billy Painter assist as well, very, very clever assist on the break from Billy Painter as well. Yeah, what a season that was. I mean, you look at the teams in that league at the time: Stevenage, Notts County, Sheffield United. I see Mark in the chat who's a Blade. Bournemouth. Obviously, look where they are now. It's mental how far football's come, and how far it's kind of reached from that point. It just an unbelievable memory as a young Rovers fan, and something that I'll always look back on. It's up there with Wembley in 08, Cardiff in 07 when we played Bristol Rovers at the Millennium Stadium in the trophy final, of course known then as the Johnston's Paint Trophy, but any younger fans that are watching or listening to this, that is now known as the Virtue Trophy. So it's just memories like that, like even earlier ones when I watched the lights go out the last time for Bellevue in 06 against Nottingham Forest, with that crazy goal that was like an accident goal from Theo Street, and then the Carling Cup run the year before when we came up against Arsenal and Mike Dean added an extra minute for no reason. And even Arsenal fans even came up to me years later and said he didn't need to add that minute. He didn't need to add that minute. But no, memories like that, and Griffin Park's a massive, massive memory. It's something that I'll always take with me. And it's one of the reasons that confirms why I'm a Doncaster Rovers supporter, and I always will be.
Love it. And that's the thing. These are the things which make football and football fans, and the relationships and those memories are what make it so special. I was interested actually listening to Brian Barry Murphy speak today, and he warned against complacency, because obviously, going away to Stevenage in midweek was a big game for Cardiff, but it was also a hard physical game. And don't get me wrong, I thought Cardiff were well worth the 3 points, and I was a bit disappointed with Stevenage actually, because I've sort of watched bits and pieces of them through the season. I thought they were all right, like pretty decent, but I was kind of underwhelmed. And then the manager's come out today, and he's been very sort of forthright, as he is, with just you can't have any complacency, because much like the Championship, I think League One will bite you on the backside if you're not at it, and you're not. If you're a bit underwhelming. And there's been periods this season when Cardiff have lost a bit of tempo, and they've just kind of not resorted, but they've ended up just going a bit sideways, backwards. And then it's been on the manager to, make a couple of subs or a few changes, and then you find that tempo again. So Cardiff will have to manage against that, because obviously they had a big game against Stevenage, who were in third on Tuesday, but now they will play, Lincoln up after you, and they've got a Chelsea game coming up. So these players, they can't have one eye on the Lincoln game or the Chelsea game, because they've got to make sure they do the business on Saturday. Does that give, in terms of Doncaster, you said you didn't have a great deal of hope, but is there a bit of hope that maybe Cardiff have got other things on their mind with a quarterfinal? And
it's quite interesting hearing that your manager's saying the fact that we can't be complacent. I respect the fact that he says that, because even though we're 19th in the league, it shows the manager's not taking this game lightly. He's not thinking 2 games ahead of this one. He's actually taking it 1 game at a time. And I think the best managers take it 1 game at a time and treat every single game like a cup final. Like you said, the Stevenage game, I watched the highlights of that literally the day after it happened, and it was a very physical game. Stevenage, I expect, to be fair, when I went into looking at that fixture, I was like, that's going to either be 0-0 or it's going to be a 1-0 either way, because Stevenage are a very physical side. They rarely outscore most opponents. It's normally close wins or close results, because Stevenage are a physical side. They're not going to outplay anyone. They're going to be physical, they're going to be robust, and Cardiff did well getting a win out of that. And it was your first competitive meeting in the league match with Stevenage as well. So again, it was a good way to kind of start the 11v11 record off with Stevenage and Cardiff in league games. But no, it's good that your manager said that, because he's taking the game seriously, and that's what I want to see. I want to see my manager say, we're going into this with no fear. We're going to rally the troops. We're going to cry out the war cry, and we're going to give it everything we've got with no fear and no mercy. Cardiff's coming out saying we can't take this game lightly, no complacency. We're going to give it what we need to, and we can't settle back in our comfort zone, because that becomes a dangerous part of our game. So it's two sides that are going to go for it, from the sounds of it. It's two sides that are going to go out there to win the match. We need to win the match. Cardiff want to win the match anyway because of where they are in the league. They're top of the league. They're heading back to the Championship as it stands. But League One's a very, very tight league. I'd argue that League One, League Two are the most competitive leagues in this country, and probably one of the most competitive leagues, or two of the most competitive leagues in European football, because of how tight they are, especially at a later stage, and how late in the stage they are, how tight it can be between promotion, mid-table, and relegation. So it's going to be a very interesting game. I don't hold on paper, I don't hold much hope out for a result. But if we go into this with no fear, and we go out there and give it everything we've got in an attacking sense and 100% effort, one, I can't say anything bad about it, because we gave it 100% no matter what the result. But if Cardiff end up buying into that no mercy approach from Doncaster, and they do become complacent, there could be a shock result on the cards, because League One can pull out shocking results when we least expect it. I'm not holding out for much. If we drew this game, it would be a massive result for us in the grand scheme of things, in the bigger picture, because, nowadays in football, it's not just about the results. We've got to take it into context. And for me, I would say that a draw would be a huge result for us. I'd love to win the game, of course I would. But I'm going into this thinking I'd take a draw at this point. And if we lost, keep the result to a minimum if we can. And not be complacent ourselves, because that could be a worry as well. If Cardiff are worrying about not wanting to be complacent, that could be something that we do by ourselves by accident. So it's one of them where I think we need to go for it, and obviously you guys are going to go for it as well. So it'll be a really, really good game. I think it could be an entertaining game potentially.
Yeah, like the interesting side of it for me is, look, if I ultimately, without being disrespectful, if Cardiff play as well as they can play, you'd expect them to pick up the 3 points.
Yeah.
However, you can't ignore the fact that they've got a cup quarter final a couple of days later, and we have such a young squad that I think in many ways it'll be very difficult for some of those young players to not be thinking about playing Chelsea on Tuesday. Like,
is there an opportunity for Cardiff to rotate then? Is there an opportunity for Cardiff to rotate?
I think so. I think if I was guessing, I think Perry NG will be rested because Ronan Kipakiao is banned against Chelsea anyway. So I would imagine Kipakiao would start. That would be my guess. But I wouldn't be shocked to see Callum Chambers play again and then Dylan Lawler play against Chelsea.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if he rests Will Fish, even though Will Fish has been our best defender. I think
he's another player that I wanted. He's another player I wanted.
He's phenomenal. And he had 2 big bangs to the head on Tuesday, and then got smashed into the advertising hoardings as well. And I think I wouldn't be shocked if they protect him, because even though it's the Carabao Cup and the league is our, what we're looking at this year, we got to, get promoted. But
is that Callum Chambers ex Arsenal?
Yeah.
I think because if that's the right Callum Chambers, and if I'm thinking correctly, I think he played against us when we played Arsenal in the Carabao Cup in 2017. Wow. If I'm correct, and if I've done that correctly,
he's ex Arsenal, ex Villa.
Yeah, so if he was in that squad in 2017 in the Carabao Cup when we lost 1-0 at the Emirates against Arsene Wenger, I mean, that's going to be weird coming up against him 8 years later. That's going to be a story and a half.
Yeah, so I would imagine. I would think he probably starts simply because I think Dylan Lawler will start against Chelsea, and I think they will try and protect some players. But then saying that, he might go with Chambers and Lawler if Fish is not fully fit. So there's definitely room for rotation from Cardiff. I mean, we had a really, you look at our bench on Tuesday, it was pretty strong. And I think, there's still a few players out as well. So I wouldn't be shocked to see. Brian Barry Murphy likes the rotation anyway. I don't think he's played the same 11 many times in a row. But
and that's what I like. That's what I like from the manager. I like the fact that he also gives the academy a chance. It's that whole kind of the experience from the City Academy. It's that kind of mentality and that kind of structure in the club of they're going to promote the academy kids, and it's not going to be an all transfer by Cardiff side, if you will. It's going to be
we only signed the keeper in the summer. We let go of I think 9 players like Aaron Ramsey and Mate and Joe Rawls, all these different players. We signed Nathan Trott. We obviously signed Kellyman on loan, and pretty sure that was it. Osho we signed late in the day, centre back who's just coming back from injury. But most weeks we have 8, sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less, academy players in the starting 11, which is is phenomenal.
It's the future.
Oh, but I think I said this. I was speaking to someone the other day. I forget who it was. But ultimately, I think every football fan their dream is obviously to play at the highest possible level their club can get to, win trophies, etc., and then do it with a load of homegrown kids who are are Cardiff fans like me or like the fans.
That's what we've started to do as well. Yeah, that's something that we've started to do with the cup games with the Virtue Trophy. We've got Sam Strown-Brown, who's out on loan, but he can play Virtue Trophy games for us. We've got a young keeper in Jacob Bryant. We've got Casper Williams, who's out on loan, who can come back in this side as well. We've got other young players that start. I think we had a 15 or 16-year-old, or at least 2 or 3 15, 16-year-olds that made an appearance at one point or another in a Virtue Trophy group match. We're starting to implement the academy into the side as well. So that's what I like. It's not just about obviously like you said, you want your side to win trophies, get promoted, etc., win playoff finals, win little competitions in Wembley and stuff like that. But you also want it to be this exciting journey, and I think that's a great thing with Cardiff and a great thing with Donny now is that the academy players is making this a very exciting journey in terms of the long term, looking beyond this season.
Yeah, it's quite mad. Like Callum Chambers and Ryan Wintle, Perry NG, who else? Callum Robinson. They're kind of like the old men in this team, and I don't think I think Callum Chambers is 30. The rest of them are all under 30. Like it's such a young team.
And it's weird to think Perry and G is now part of the older group. When we remember years and years ago when he was part of the Crew youth factory almost. So.
Yeah, it is crazy because. And I tried to say this a few times when we had like a bit of a ropey spell a couple of weeks back. It's like it's a very young team, and they're gonna have little moments, little days, little periods where they just maybe they're a bit fatigued or they're mentally overwrought, whatever it may be. There's going to be periods because they're learning, and I think we had that heavy defeat, which against Blackpool away. And it was an awful, a really, really poor performance in the second half of that game. But since then, we've scored 3 goals in every game until Tuesday just gone, where we obviously only scored 1. Like the reaction to that performance was exceptional. And I think that's all you can ask for from a young team is that, they're going to make mistakes, but will they learn from them? And so far, it does feel like Cardiff, the kids have sort of learned as they're going along, certain away fixtures. The first away game of the season against Port Vale was difficult. It was physical. It was a big challenge for them. We got a draw. And then ever since then, the away sort of form has picked up a bit. We had a good result at Wimbledon the next game. So I think it's just one of those where with young players, you've got to give them a bit of patience, but also, get behind them and stuff. But I think it's exciting. I'm loving football this year. I think part of that is because I'm getting to watch Cardiff win some football matches, which obviously for the last few seasons we haven't really seen a lot of that. So
it's been a very difficult time. I was on the outside looking into that whole Cardiff situation over the last few years, and it was very, very difficult seeing what Cardiff were going through on the pitch and also the troubles off the pitch as well with what the fans were experiencing and what the fans were worried about, concerned about, and frustrated about. Let's not go away from that. It was very frustrating from a Cardiff fan's perspective at that point, but it's proving to be a really good spell at the minute. And like I said, I think Cardiff are very much poised to get back into the Championship as soon as possible and do not really a Birmingham City walkover, but definitely in terms of getting promoted straight back into the Championship at the first time of asking. I think it's definitely the Dragons rising from the ashes. It's definitely the pride of Wales, and yeah, this is definitely Cardiff's time, and we're gonna see that three-way Welsh derby next season, I reckon.
Nah, Jacks will go down. To be fair, I think with Cardiff have got to go up this year, and the reason for that is the likes of Dylan Lawler, Ruben Colwell, Ronan Kipakio, probably a couple of others. They will not stay in League One another year. I just think bigger clubs will snap them up.
Yeah.
And, as much as we've got another crop of young players coming through, they're probably not as far down the line as the ones who are playing in and around the first team at the moment. And I'm not sure that they're up to the same standard yet. They might be, but they don't look quite as gifted as, the ones which... And in fairness, like the likes of Dylan Lawler and the Colwell brothers and Ronan Kipakio, they are very gifted footballers, I think, who all four of them will probably end up going on to play, in the Premier League. So it's kind of one of them. You've got to enjoy them while you've got them. But I'm fascinated by Saturday because I think there's not a danger, but I think there's definitely a world where Brian Barry Murphy rotates a lot. And then there's also a world where he goes as strong as he possibly can. But I'm kind of very interested by what he decides to go with, because you can't get away from they got a cup quarter final a couple of days later. And, having seen Cardiff play in 2 cup finals in my lifetime, which was very unexpected, even though it's the Carabao Cup, you're kind of like, well, if we could find a way to get past Chelsea somehow, suddenly you're in the semi-final, and it's a...
And I think they're beatable. I think they're beatable right now.
They're all over the place, aren't they?
You're playing them at the best possible time because Chelsea are beatable. And, the fans are scapegoating their players. The form's not been great. They've lost 4 on the bounce, no competitions. Chelsea, apart, after the so-called Chelsea in a title race a few weeks ago, they've kind of fallen off a cliff. And the title race has suddenly disappeared, and it's become a top 4 race in the space of a few weeks. So the
problem is their squad is insane, isn't it? Like, you look at how many players they've got, it's just absolutely outrageous.
Chelsea's one of them clubs where they've got they'll have about 80 players on the books, and I wouldn't be surprised if they had 40 people loaned out as well.
Oh god!
Like Chelsea are the only club in in European football, definitely, that could have a squad that could be of 100 people at all ages. It's ridiculous.
Well, last year,
the biggest squad doesn't always mean the best squad. Cardiff. I think Chelsea's beatable at the minute, which is why I think, like you said, there's a world on Saturday where Cardiff could heavily rotate. But from a Donny perspective, there's only one world on Saturday, and that is Grant McCann going with his strongest 11. He will not rotate today. On Saturday, he will not rotate.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at your form, like in all competitions, I know it's difficult, and you shouldn't probably include the Virtue Trophy for either club because there's, you play the kids and stuff. But you've won 3 of your last 6, drawn 1, and lost 2. Cardiff have won 5, lost that 1 against Wimbledon, where they played like a bunch of children, which is like, it's good and bad in many ways. Like, but I think
definitely
for the future, it's good, isn't it? But
yeah, it's been a mixed season. Like I said, mixed season. But the bigger picture, like you said, only 2 losses in our last 6 matches in all competitions. Take the trophy and the cup away, it's 2 losses, a draw, and a win in our last 4. And include the Bradford game in the trophy, that's a win. So the bigger picture is it's not as bad as what it's been made out to be by a few people. It's actually not as bad as what it's been made out by some. It could be worse. We could be Plymouth. We could be Port Vale. It's not as bad as what people think. And the thing is as well, this is why context is so important in football, especially nowadays. The defeats, apart from the Leyton Orient game, and maybe one half of a couple of matches or a section of a couple of matches or just individual mistakes, the performances have actually been okay. Like the worst, take away the Orient game, the next worst performance was actually okay. It was average for maybe one half or sections of spells. It's not been awful, apart from that one 4-0 defeat. So any side we can get a result out of, as long as we're not awful, as long as we don't replicate the Orient game. Apart from that, we've been okay on overall in terms of an average performance rating. I'd give us an okay. So it's not been an awful season by any regard. It's definitely not as bad as what some people have made out.
Give me your predicted 11 for Saturday's game. Like, what do you think the manager will go with?
So taking into account that obviously Pearson's out, Broadbent suspended, I'm gonna if he's gonna go with the 4-2-3-1. I would like to go with a back five, back three, and go direct. But I think he'll set up with his usual 4-2-3-1. So I think it's going to be, and depending on who we rested on Tuesday night as well, and who didn't come on the pitch on Tuesday night, it'll be Lottatala in goal, the whole Loney. We're going to have a back four of Jamie Sterry and James Maxwell as the right and left full-backs, respectively. We're going to have Conor O'Riordan as the right centre-back, and I'm going to go with Sean Graham as the left centre-back to come into the middle of the defence. I'm going to go with the midfield pairing of Owen Bailey and Ben Close with George Broadbent suspended. I'm going to put Harry Clifton back in the 10 role and put Crew back on the bench. I'm going to go with Luke Molyneux as a right winger. I'm going to go Jordan Gibson on the left wing, and I'm going to go with Billy Sharp up front. My preferred 11, if we're basing it off of the system that I want us to set up in, which is the 3-4-2-1 in possession. Obviously, out of possession, it becomes a 5-back. And then you've got your two midfielders, and then you've got your two attacking midfielders and your striker. So 5-2-2-1. I would go Lottatala in goal again. I would go with a back three, and I would go Senior at left centre-back. I would go Grain in the centre. I would go O'Riordan at right centre-back, Sterry and Maxwell as wing-backs on the right, and the Maxwell left, Sterry right. I'd go Bailey and Close again. But then I would go Molyneux and Gibson as wide attacking midfielders, almost like a Leverkusen-style system under Xavi Alonso, and then Billy Sharp as your lone striker. And then on the bench, you'd have Ian Lawler, you'd have Charlie Crew, you would have maybe one of the young defenders to make up the fact if we're going to go with that back three system, we wouldn't have a centre-back on the bench. Senior will definitely be on the bench, and I've got a feeling Tom Nixon might be on the bench. Crew definitely on the bench. I reckon Gotts could be on the bench. Hanlon's going to definitely be on the bench. Middleton will definitely be on the bench. So, and Ajayi maybe. If Nixon's not on the bench, Ajayi will be. So that's how I think we'll go. I think in terms of his system and also the system that I'd like to set up with.
So do you know what's really interesting is I think generally speaking, Cardiff struggle a little bit more against the back three, back five. Back fours, I think we really have done some damage this year to some teams, like just in terms of chance creation and XG and all the rest of it. But actually against back fives, and I haven't checked the stats on this, but just from kind of like memory and just, watching each game, I feel like we've found it more difficult to play against the back five, back three. Not all the time, of course.
Yeah.
But in certain games and certain areas. And it's interesting that you yourself would prefer that sort of system as opposed to you think the manager will go like 4-2-3-1. Because I think when they match up against us, that's where we obviously, like I said, we've got quite a strong squad in terms of depth, which means if you go in man for man positionally, 9 times out of 10, we should have a better player than the opposition, if that makes sense, individually.
Yeah,
whereas
absolutely.
when you don't match them up positionally, it asks different tactical questions. And I think that's where we've become a bit more frustrated.
And this is where Doncaster need to do the research on Cardiff, because as you said, and I've seen some of the stuff myself, you do struggle more against back fives and back threes rather than back fours. It's a lot better to play against back fours. So, and we've played back five, back threes before, and not necessarily playing a back 3-5 or back 3 or back 5 it doesn't mean we're playing negative football. It just means we're setting up a bit more compact defensively and we're keeping ourselves tidy at the back. But we can still offer that pace and directness and the aggression and the tenacity in the forward line, whilst also being compact, robust, and pretty nasty defensively, and almost like a bit of an old classic. And it's a rival, so I might get absolutely crushed for saying this, but it's almost showing the aggression of a old school Leeds side. Where, you know, those young fans who maybe watching or listening to this might not remember, but even as a kid, I remember watching old clips and even going back to them now, watching, you know, the horrible, nasty sides of Leeds, even under the likes of David O'Leary back in the day. You know, they were a strong, horrible, nasty young side at times. And, you know, that's why they're in the Champions League, you know, back in the day. But we need to show that similar robustness of a nasty Leeds Strongbow sponsorship site at times. We need to show that nastiness in the back. And again, I refer back to the back three, back five. We need to come up. If Grant McCann does his research, which I trust that he does, same with Cliff Burn, same with the staff, and I fully trust them 100%. I would like to see us go with that back five because Cardiff struggle mainly against back fives. And if we're going to be going into this with no fear, we've got to set up in a system that Cardiff may show more complacency against, and we force them to show complacency and then we hit them direct on the counter. That's going to have to be the way we play, because if we start playing open football against an open football team, like I said, we will get carved apart. This is where research and context and going away from something you're familiar with is going to have to come to effect on Saturday, because we are going to have to come away from that back four and that 4-2-3-1 from a majority of the game in terms of going into this game on Saturday. We've got to come away from that. We've got to go with something different, because if we set up the same way we have and just tinker around with the lineup again, I have a fear we might get demolished.
Yeah, it is difficult. And like, I should clarify, you know, we've beaten teams with a back five and we've done well against them at times, but when we have got a bit frustrated and had to be a bit more patient, or teams have kind of locked it down a little bit better, has been, generally speaking, against teams who've sat in with a sort of five defenders out of possession, because it obviously just gives you extra men. Now, Cardiff like to, you know, their wingers will literally stand on the touchline for the whole game while they're out of possession. They'll stand on the touchline to make the pitch as big as possible, and then they'll drift in to create room for the fullbacks. And if you've got a back five, that's much easier to defend. Whereas if you've got a back four, obviously the back four shuffles across. So, you know, the left back will shuffle across with the rest of his defenders. Cardiff will, you know, get everyone over to the left wing or their left wing. And then all of a sudden, Ryan Wintle or Callum Chambers or Dylan Lawler will play a 50-yard ball across the pitch to the right winger who stood on the touchline, and then all of a sudden Cardiff will have a 2-on-1 versus the fullback, because
and you know what? There's been moments this season when even we've had a centre attacking midfielder having to track back and cover a defensive position at times. There's been times where a centre back's had to cover the fullback position because the fullback's gone too far forward, and then you got this gap where the defensive midfielder, if he hasn't tracked back and covered that position, and then you've got this kind of Tetris style rotation where one's covering one, one's covering another. Somewhere there's going to be a gap, and Cardiff's going to have to be that Tetris block that falls into the gap and ends up touching ground level, which is where the goal is, and getting the points from it. So it's going to be like a Tetris game at times. I think in possession from Cardiff's perspective, I think they're going to have to be the Tetris block that finds the gap. And it's going to have to be a gap that's going to be where the goal line is, where the end of the square is, and you gain the points from it. It's going to be like a Tetris game in possession, I think, from a Cardiff perspective. From a Doncaster perspective, it's going to have to be really, really patient. You're going to pressure us. I've got no doubt about that. I expect Cardiff to have more of the ball. On average, you've got 60% possession. We've got 53. It's even 61 for Cardiff. So it's going to be one of them where we're going to have to be patient. We're not going to have the majority of the ball. We're going to have less shots than Cardiff because, again, shots on target per game for us, we're in the bottom four. I think you guys are in the top five. We're going to be on the back foot for the majority of this game, but we've got to be really patient. And this is one of the games where we've got to be clinical, because that's been one of the Achilles heels of our season. We haven't been clinical. I think we had 8 shots in the second half against Stockport, none on target. And we had no shots on target for the entirety of that game on Tuesday night. This is where we've got to be clinical, and we've got to take our chances, because if we don't, again, if we leave ourselves open, we don't take our chance at the other end, we'll get punished the other side. And it could end up being another 4-0. So we've got to be careful. We've got to show no mercy and no fear, like the manager's come out and said in the press this week. But there's always that thing at the back of your mind of, we've also got to be focused. We can't make silly, dumb mistakes at the back. We can't be lackluster in the final third, and we've got to be concentrating, because one slip up, Cardiff are through, and there may be no stopping them.
Just to finish us off before I get your predictions, mate, I wanted to ask you about the keeper, Challoner.
Yeah.
If I have pronounced that right. Obviously highly rated from Hull, had a good season in League Two previously. What do you feel like he is? He's got like a 66% save percentage this year, and he seems to. It says he concedes 1.2 goals per 90, and stats can be deceiving sometimes. He makes 2.4 saves per 90, and he's kept 4 clean sheets in 15. So, how do you feel about him? Is he the out and out number one at the club, and is he a good keeper, or is he susceptible to any sort of issues?
Yeah, he's 100% the number one choice. We've got the experience behind him in Ian Lawler, who plays the cup games, although Lotitala did play the knockout stage in the trophy. So, that was interesting. But yeah, Lotitala's out and out number one. From a shot stopping perspective, couldn't fault him. I think he had some great saves. There's two main criticisms with me constructively about TLT. And first of all, as a person, as an ambassador for the football club on loan from Hull, fantastic. Great guy off the field. Spoken to him numerous times in his first loan spell 2 seasons ago and this spell now. In terms of on the pitch constructively, in terms of what I think it can work on, first of all, his handling. There's been a few times this season where he's come up for a ball and he's dropped it, or he's been slippy handling it. Or he might have saved a shot and it's kind of spilled out and he needs to grab onto it very, very quickly before the opposition can kind of press in. So I think his handling needs a bit of work. I think it's been quite slippy and a bit inconsistent. And the other one is playing out from the back. There's been quite a few times this season where he's had to clear the ball under a lot of pressure and at the last second and the last millisecond on some occasions. And playing out from the back, there is always that risk of you're going to be susceptible to losing the ball in a dangerous area if the opposition's that far up and at a certain level up the pitch. So I think some of his ball possession could be a little bit more careful and more considerate under pressure, and his handling could be dealt with a bit more quickly and less slippy. But yeah, apart from those two main things, I think his shot stopping's been brilliant. He's saved us numerous times this season. Again, if I was to rate his season so far, I think he's had a good season. Do I think his first spell's been better than his second spell? Absolutely. I think his first spell on loan 2 seasons ago has been much better. I think the step up in league has been a big thing to factor for Lotitala this season, because against League 2 seasons ago, brilliant. We had Sharman Low last season. I thought he was good. And now this season in League 1 with Lotitala, I think he's still adapting to the quality of the league compared to League 2 seasons ago. But overall, I'd say he's had a good season so far. As long as he keeps working on the handling of the ball and playing it out from the back on numerous occasions, and the susceptibility of losing it under pressure in the last second when he's playing it out from the back. As long as he keeps working on that and keeps developing that as the season progresses, again, it's a process, it's a project, it's a process. It takes time. But I think he's been okay so far. I think he's been good.
So that's interesting, because recently Cardiff's corners have been really quite good. They've been very dangerous. They've been whipping it right under the crossbar or right in at the near post. Will Fisher's picked up a couple of goals. And so that's kind of interesting on the handling point of view. And in terms of the playing out from the back, I think I'm trying to remember, but I think in my tactical showdown video tomorrow, I'm pretty sure that's one of the elements that I highlighted, that is, if Cardiff press as well as they can and do usually, they might cause Doncaster a few issues. There was a game recently, I think it was the Mansfield game, where we pressed it was so well drilled and so well done that their keeper and their centre back just kept kicking it out, and they did it about 3 or 4 times. And I think certainly, that's something that maybe Cardiff will target. Brian Barry Murphy's very tactically astute, so I think they have all the videos and stuff to research, don't they? So maybe that'll be interesting to see. Shall tell you what then, to finish us off, what is the score going to be on Saturday? Tell us your head and then tell us your heart.
I was going to say, it's one of them where you're kind of thinking we're both, but on separate occasions. My heart is telling me just get a 2-2 draw and just try and keep it respectable, and try and get out there with at least a point. My head is telling me 2-0 Cardiff, and just a repeat of Tuesday night, really, but on a lot more of a dominating scale from a Cardiff perspective. So I'd say 2-2 with my heart, 2-0 with my head. But I'm going to go with my heart. I'm going to be optimistic and go with my heart. I'm going to stick with a 2-2 draw.
Interesting. I've really enjoyed chatting, mate. And obviously, when we play you later in the season, we'll get you back on, and we'll get you on with Reese as well, because I know he was keen to have a chat with you and that. But I do really appreciate your time, mate. It's been thoroughly enjoyable. For everyone watching, thank you very much. And also, if you haven't, check out the recruitment report video that we dropped earlier. And we've dropped a few absolutely exceptional videos, if I do say so myself, this week. They've done really well, and they're very interesting on a range of topics, from Emiliano Sala to 5 things we learned to the recruitment report today. And then, of course, tomorrow we start gearing up towards, tonight really, but we start gearing up towards the Doncaster game. We'll have our match preview in the morning. We'll have the tactical showdown in the evening. And then Saturday morning, we will have 3 big questions. But until then, I bid you farewell. Thank you ever so much. Keep the faith, Cardiff City fans, and make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you in a minute.
Thank you.
This channel is powered by an incredible membership community on Cardiff City World and patreon.com/AcePodcastNation. Becoming a member unlocks exclusive rewards, from early access to live event tickets, bonus content, and even the occasional inside transfer scoop when we get it. But more importantly, it allows us to bring you top quality Cardiff City content 7 days a week. Across those 7 days, we're talking match previews, exclusive interviews, instant match reactions, the breakdown podcast, tactical deep dives, the spotlight series, Bluebirds Rewind, Academy Focus, and just so much more. Led by myself, backed by an army of passionate Cardiff City fans, this is content created by fans for fans. Balanced, professional, and 100% all about the club we all love. If you enjoy what we do, then join the community today and support what we are doing as we help to keep Cardiff City World flying high.